My name is Carmen Rouet, so I work at Poste, and I'm in charge of an intrapreneurship program called Projet pour 2020, which means 20 projects for 2020. I know it's lunchtime, so thank you for joining. So I expect the talk not to be too long, so if you want to ask questions along the way, please feel free to ask your questions. Today I'm going to talk to you about entrepreneurship, culture, and mindset. So I'm not here to talk about methodology, being started by design thinking. Other people will do it better than me today. But first, I wanted to start with the context of La Poste. I thought it might interest you. So for the past 2 decades, exponential adoption of digital technologies and the constant growth of globalization have led to a rapidly changing market environment. Or the traditional postal model is becoming obsolete. So the economic, regulatory, and technological evolutions have dramatically changed the environment of the postal system, not only in France but across the globe. The digital revolution has triggered an irreversible decrease of mail. We lose between 6 and 7% of volume every year for the past 10 years, which is a lot. And we also have a major decrease on the number of visitors in the post offices. The opportunities given by the rise of e-commerce have intensified and ever-increased competitions in the parcel delivery market. So it's one of the activities that is driving growth within La Poste, the parcel delivery market, but it's also a very, very competitive market. And La Banque Postale is now evolving in a financial landscape characterized by higher prudential supervision with historically low interest rates and the rise of digital banking, of course. So in 2014, La Poste launched a strategic plan, an ambitious strategic plan, called La Poste 2020, Conquering the Future. The strategic plan was the result of an innovative and collaborative approach in the form of a massive public consultation of all the stakeholders of the postal sector. This consultation involved 150,000 employees, so 2/3 of the company, local and regional authorities, because we have a broad local presence, consumer associations, and conferences with French citizens. It also involves strategic discussion with the trade union organizations and preparatory work with the board of directors. So the main assets to lead the company's transformation are our customer reach through an unparalleled physical distribution network that touches every household in France every day, well, 6 days a week, and our values of trust, accessibility, and local presence. But also, and foremost, an engaged and motivated workforce of around 250,000 employees. So transformation comes with innovation. Embedding a culture of innovation implies mobilizing the entire organization. At La Poste, we are convinced that driving change can come from the company through engaged and motivated people. In today's fast-paced environments, companies need to engage in strategic innovation in order to keep their existing business running efficiently, but also to build new paths of growth. As well, today many companies have a real challenge to attract and keep entrepreneurial employees. At La Poste, through collaborative innovation, we allow any employee of the company to make meaningful contributions. They can share best practices and suggest ideas for process improvement, improve customer experience, or suggest services to enrich existing product lines. Through entrepreneurship, we aim to explore and create new business models with in-house entrepreneurs. This is about exploring new markets, new customers' needs, that will become new services with potential sustainable business models. One of the best ways to get there is to develop entrepreneurial skills among the employees and to build a community of innovators and entrepreneurs. Supporting and encouraging entrepreneurial behavior will also lead to a growing number of high potentials. So basically, what are the main benefits of entrepreneurship? For me, there are three main benefits in entrepreneurship. The first is to motivate and engage talented employees and to develop this new talent, and also to attract new talent by encouraging autonomy, creativity, and entrepreneurial behavior. And also by creating a safe place where they can share their ideas, find purpose, and develop their own projects and skills. And also by allowing them to engage with like-minded peers. The second benefit is to develop new businesses for the company with a customer-centric approach, by exploring new markets with lower budgets and an on-the-field approach, and by accelerating time to market with iterative processes like lean startup. Actually, fostering bottom-up innovation acknowledges that as you are closer to the ground, you are in touch with you're in a much better position to see what is missing from the market and to propose new solutions to address what is missing and find new product ideas. The third benefit is to develop an innovation and entrepreneurial culture across the company. So by developing a culture of collaboration and encouraging bottom-up innovation, by developing new ways of working and new methodologies like design thinking and startup, and also by adopting a test and learn approach and accepting risk and failure. So what is our program about? In 2014, following the open consultation for the strategic plan, the President decided to take the collaborative approach, the President of La Poste. Decided to take...
It's in English.
Yes, it's in English. Please join.
Lucky man.
So I will take questions in French if you have questions in French.
No.
But I will answer in English. So in 2014, following the open consultation for the strategic plan, the President of La Poste decided to take the collaborative approach even further by launching an entrepreneurial challenge. So this challenge called Project 2020. So by participating in this challenge, every employee across the group in Europe can have the opportunity to contribute to the company's success and shape the future of the group. To be part of the challenge, employees are invited to submit their ideas in teams of 2 to 5 people. To be successful, the projects must meet a few criteria based on business potential, on go-to-market speed and feasibility, on the degree of innovation, on strategic fit for the company, and also, most important, the team entrepreneurial potential. It's actually, the ideas are ideas of new businesses, so it's not process improvement. After the most promising projects are shortlisted, the finalists are invited to a pitch session in front of a high-caliber jury, with the senior executive of the company, but also with prominent figures of the French innovation and the startup ecosystem, who will select the happy few, which will be 2 to 3 year happy fews. So you have among you one of the happy fews, so if you have questions for the entrepreneur side. So if they manage to demonstrate real potential, they will be able to create a new venture. They will have 6 to 18 months to demonstrate the potential of their idea with the stage gate process. And by the end of the 18 months, if they demonstrate real business potential, they will create a new venture or corporate startup, whatever you want, which will be financed by the group, but also partially owned by the project team. We created 1 venture and 2 ventures are underway, and the other projects are still pivoting and finding their right business model to present business planning in front of an investment committee to go after the 18 months. So I have been working in this program for over 2 years now, and last year we did a return on experience in order to redesign the program and make it more relevant and more efficient. And this allowed us to have a clear view of what was working and the challenges that we were still facing. So I wanted to talk to you about today is mindset and culture in entrepreneurship. Because methodology, you have a lot of people talking about that here. And I wanted to talk to you about that through the entrepreneur's journey within the entrepreneurship program. So first, let's define these terms: entrepreneurship, mindset, and culture. So entrepreneurship, you have lots of definitions. So if you type Google the entrepreneurship definition in Google, you have a lot of them. Well, I made a mix of them, and my definition is that entrepreneurship is behaving like an entrepreneur while working within a large organization. An entrepreneur is an employee who takes direct responsibility for turning an idea into a profitable new product or service for his company. There are advantages for the project owner is that, well, he still is an employee, so at the end of the month he gets his paycheck. He might leverage existing assets from the company, and he also could get financial support from the company. The downside is that they need to navigate in the complexity and the bureaucracy of a big corporation, so they have less freedom than a real entrepreneur. So in order to foster entrepreneurship, we need to create a corporate culture which accepts risk and failure, and that allows entrepreneurs not to follow the company's usual processes and routines. And you also need to identify the right people who will be able to adopt an entrepreneurial mindset. So two terms here, mindset and culture. So mindset is individual, so it's more the mindset of the entrepreneur. Mindset is, we can define mindset as a person's way of thinking. It's the established attitudes that someone has, and it's the way someone thinks about things. As culture relates to the beliefs and ideas that are shared within an organization, whether it is a company, a country, a religion, your group of friends, or whatever. So inside a company, it will be the ways of thinking, behaving, and working of its employees. Basically, what we could say is the way, what people would refer to as the way we do things around here. So, if some of you work in a big corporate company, how many of you work in big companies? Okay. So, if you are in like innovation, marketing, or if you just try to do things differently, you must have faced the typical answer, like, no, this is just not the way we do things here. So to give you an example, in our company, we ask our entrepreneurs to behave and act like real entrepreneurs. They have a budget they can use, and we ask them to use it like a startup, and to have a startup approach when experimenting their ideas, which means that, well, use cheap tools with the results that you can get easy. On the other hand, we ask them to follow the regular procurement process in order to buy whatever they need to buy. And in our company, it is easier to spend 5,000 euros with a registered supplier than spending 100 euros in SurveyMonkey or Facebook ads or whatever. So last year I asked, let's say naively, if we could get corporate cards for the entrepreneurs team. So the answer was that corporate credit cards were only used by the executive committee and the management team. So I ask again, is it possible to make an exception? Obvious answer was no. So after a few days of trying to negotiate with people in finance, credit, and all these nice people, I finally convinced them. So some of them are open-minded, so you only have to find the right people. So I finally convinced them that how non-risky and how useful it would be to have the corporate credit cards. So it's a small anecdote, but which illustrates well corporate culture. So the entrepreneurship journey. Well, I don't have that many slides. I actually forgot that I had a slide after this one. Oh, maybe it's this. Das ist ungefähr. Picture of entrepreneurs. So, the entrepreneurship journey. In the entrepreneurship journey, we will have several characters. The main character is, well, the entrepreneur, and the secondary but very important characters will be the manager, the broader ecosystem, so other employees, the sponsor, and the board of directors. So let's start with the entrepreneur. So in a company, entrepreneurship can be organic or organized. When I say organic, I mean that an employee can pursue a project outside of his working hours, under the radar and without anyone asking him to do it. When he gets the first result, he will try to find a sponsor and continue his project. This is a good approach because you will only get people who are extremely motivated and with extremely high entrepreneurial skills. But if you want to develop a culture of innovation, get a pipeline of innovating projects, and build a community of talented entrepreneurial employees, it's better to organize entrepreneurship with a dedicated framework, like a call for projects or an entrepreneurship program. That way, motivated people with an idea in mind will know where to go, who to turn to, and especially they will know what you expect from them. Furthermore, it is important to show employees with an entrepreneurial mindset that they are supported and encouraged to come up with radical new ideas. So how do you identify these entrepreneurs? One of the challenges is to identify the right people, because having a good idea doesn't necessarily mean that you are the right person to execute it. And entrepreneurs do not fit a single profile, so you cannot ask HR to help you find entrepreneurs. There are people coming from different backgrounds who share similar entrepreneurial attributes. So when choosing a team of entrepreneurs, what you need to look for is a potential in the following attributes. So first, entrepreneurs strive for autonomy, and they are willing to be responsible for all the decisions they take. When you are an entrepreneur, you don't have a regular corporate manager. You might have a facilitator who can help you move forward, but you are fully responsible on the decisions you take and on the project outcomes. And that is not a natural thing in a big corporation. People usually don't like responsibilities, actually. Everyone says that they want more responsibilities, but when the responsibility comes to what they are doing, there's no one there. So, CM is another entrepreneur. Thank you for joining us. So, second attribute. Entrepreneurs have to have problem-solving skills. They go from "it's not my fault," "it's procurement's fault," or the operational fault, to "I will find a way." They are action-oriented. It's actually a shift to imperfect action and a capacity to get their hands dirty. They don't wait to have a finalized product before testing with real customers. They actually practice lean startup, even if some of them don't know it. They practice iterative processes, and they truly believe that the product and service can be improved over time. Another two attributes are adaptability and curiosity. They thrive in changing environments, and they are capable of observing, testing, and especially adapting. They actually don't fall in love with their idea. They're capable of making their idea evolution. One very important attribute is that they are very good at networking skills. They are capable of identifying allies within the company who will be able to help them with their project. This goes actually with risk-taking and social intelligence. They know the rules, and they know how to circumvent them intelligently. They are also frugal. They always know how to do more with less. They know how to leverage with existing assets and how to work with internal resources. And finally, they have a very high level of self-confidence and a natural sense of leadership, which is necessary to build a small but effective team to effectively motivate and mobilize employees around the project, and also to convince top management. So, if you make a call for projects or for entrepreneurs, make sure that all the potential candidates know what you are looking for. So the next character The next character is the manager. She looks like a nice manager, everybody is happy. While entrepreneurship offers great value to the company in the long term, managers are further distracted by their daily routines. So this can create an environment in which they will likely reject new ideas. Managers need to acknowledge that motivation of employees is of crucial importance. Financial rewards are not always enough. They need to support and cherish new ideas while tolerating risk and failure. In the case of entrepreneurship programs, managers can sometimes fear losing their good collaborators who will leave the department to become independent entrepreneurs and develop a new venture for the company. But by encouraging entrepreneurial behavior within their teams, they will encourage autonomy, sense of initiative, and openness within the rest of the team. And well, most of you must know that moving middle management is not an easy task, but it's not all the middle management's fault. Innovation has been on the agendas of CEOs for a long time, and bottom-up initiatives are appreciated by most of the employees. But we still bump into barriers and bureaucracies, blaming middle management to be risk-averse and the guardians of the status quo. However, when the C-suite is asking for innovation, but the middle managers are still judged by short-term financial objectives, it's not surprising that they are not likely to encourage innovative ideas. So this is one of our major challenges. In our programs, the candidates do not need approval at the beginning. They don't need approval from their managers to submit a project. But once they get in the selection process, they will start needing some slack time for training for the final pitch. And they will also have to work on their projects alongside their regular job, so which might have an impact in the regular job. Furthermore, once they win, they will stay in the headcounts of the manager, even if the project has nothing to do with the department. So you can imagine that's a source of frustration and friction. So this year, we decided to make things differently. So teams will have to find the sponsors who will be willing to take also the headcount and who will actually own better the project. It's not the only thing to change middle management approach, but it's already one thing. Like in the ideal world, it would be to include entrepreneurship and fostering innovative initiatives, part of the evaluation criteria for the annual evaluation of managers. But we are still far from that. But with this, we would love to see a change in the middle managers, going from fear of losing a collaborator to being proud of having a collaborator become an entrepreneur, which would mean that they encourage entrepreneurial behavior to motivate their team. So the next character, it's, well, the internal border ecosystem, which is just the rest of the employees. So as entrepreneurs are making the way through corporate innovation and navigating the corporate red tape, they will find several characters who embody the company's culture. In this process, social intelligence and networking are one of the most important skills. If they need to find competent and motivated people, and convince them to help them even if what they are asking is out of their job description. For example, some entrepreneurs who come from top management can sometimes lack of humbleness because they are used to others executing right away when they ask for something. And being in a different type of relationship can be challenging for them. So in order to find allies, entrepreneurs need to be inspiring at the same time, but also humble in order to gather people around their projects. So what would other people help them if it's not on their job description? It's because it inspires them, and because it allows them to do something differently, because let's face it, lots of people get bored in their usual corporate jobs. It's not funny, it's real.
That's why we're laughing.
For example, some of our entrepreneurs, they need legal advice in order to regarding general terms and sales conditions for the product and services they are developing. and most of the time they don't have someone from legal in their team. So they need to go and find someone inside the company. But actually, most of the people from the legal department are very inclined to help them, because they usually come with unusual requests and with a co-construction approach. So they find it rewarding to work in something different, with people who really appreciate the effort they do, and especially who are genuinely grateful for their help, because they are probably used to work with people in marketing who maybe treat them like just another thing I have to do for validating my product. So actually, entrepreneurs can act as catalysts of change by shaking up the way things are done in the company. And another thing inside the corporation, as any innovative venture, maybe more than half of the projects are doomed to fail. Sorry for I hope it will be dodgy. So some of the entrepreneurs will end up going back to the classic organization. In this case, they will be able to spread new methodologies and new ways of thinking within the company, so they really add great value to the company. So we see entrepreneurs as agents of change, as innovation ambassadors, who will show other employees to do things differently, and who will inspire those around them to be more proactive and less risk-averse. So the ecosystem is usually quite okay with entrepreneurs. They're not mean today. So the next character is the sponsor. Every project actually needs a sponsor. In this, I would like to make a side note on the sponsorship subject, which is not directly related to the entrepreneur's journey, but most to the entrepreneurship program itself. Sponsorship from top management is actually crucial for an entrepreneurship program. There is a lot of enthusiasm going around corporate innovation, and all leaders are convinced that they need to innovate within their company. But on the one hand, though they have to continue running their existing businesses and innovate within their existing businesses, and on the other hand, they need to find new businesses which are in line with their strategy. And on the other hand, they cannot build standalone and isolated labs to protect projects from the short-term pressures from the business units, because it can end up in lack of business support. And the real challenge to reintegrate the successful project in the core business. We have seen now a lot of innovation labs that really have a hard time to justify their existence, because it's not that easy to find the right like passerelles between the two worlds. So I'm really convinced that in order to have buy-in across the company, projects need to be aligned with the strategic directions and the goals of the company, and also they need to include in some way or another way decision makers from the different business units. And the same applies to the ideas. Some people might say everyone has good ideas and entrepreneurship is for everybody. But trying to make innovation everybody's concern is a good intention. But entrepreneurship is not actually a good idea. It's not actually for everybody, and not all of the ideas are good ideas. Being clear on the type of project that you want to see and what you expect from an entrepreneur doesn't mean you're limiting creativity. It means you're given a broad, clear guideline, clear guidelines, in order to avoid further disappointment. Because when you say that every idea is good, well, when you have to explain to people why you don't choose their idea, is quite more complicated than putting specific guidance from the beginning. At La Poste, for example, at the beginning, we didn't have specific guidance. Didn't give specific guidance to the potential candidates on the type of market we were looking for. So, because it was supposed to restrain creativity. But we actually found out, which is not very surprising, that this is one of the main reasons we sometimes lack of business unit support. So this year we decided to organize the call for projects around specific topics with clear sponsors for each topic. So they will really they will actually be decision takers on the topics and on the projects they are choosing. And we are also assuming a highly selective approach, while in the past, the message was entrepreneurship is for everybody, which will also give credibility to the selection process of the teams. And it can actually boost buying from the business sponsors. Because actually one of the difficulties is to when you have like this, everybody can have good ideas, everybody can be an entrepreneur, then it's more difficult to find sponsors because they won't take it seriously actually. So back to the entrepreneur journey. So once the entrepreneur has a sponsor, whether it's the sponsor that chose them or that the top management told the sponsor, well, you will have this project. That was our previous approach. Sometimes we are lucky and some of the projects have nice sponsors. But sometimes they don't get less involved because they don't actually choose the project. So once they get the sponsor, the role of the sponsor is to provide guidance to the entrepreneur's team, to give sometimes financial support, but especially in internal resources support, and also to give political capital, let's say. It's like because having a sponsor gives tremendous credibility to a project to push things forward. He or she is usually also an expert on the market the project is addressing, so he can give very valuable advice as well. The entrepreneurs, sometimes with help from the innovation team, must actually intelligently let the sponsor understand that he doesn't own the project. He's a sponsor of the project, but he doesn't own the project. And that he needs to behave more like a facilitator than a controller. And one way of doing that is for the entrepreneur to show on the one side the strategic interest of the project for his business unit, and on the other side by stressing the need of autonomy in order to avoid bureaucracy, in order to move things fast. Another good practice, let's say, for managing a sponsor is that entrepreneurs should also keep informed sponsors very often on the process, on the progress of the project, because maybe they only see their sponsor once a month or every 2 months. But in order to get real buy-in and implicate the sponsor, it's better to keep them informed, whether if it's good news, bad news, or whatever. And we get to the final round. Well, not final round, but actually it is. But it's the final character who will decide of everything actually. In another side point here, most of you must know that it's hard to measure innovation and even harder to prove that you're making progress. When people ask me what is the return on investment of our entrepreneurship program, well, I tell them that entrepreneurship is not about return on investment, but I still haven't found the right metrics to measure success, not in a financial way, regarding entrepreneurship. So if you have ideas afterwards, I'm taking. So leaders need to accept the part of risk that comes with innovation. More than half of the project will not be successful at the end. If you compare an innovation portfolio to a VC portfolio will invest in 10 projects maybe for 10 years, looking for one great exit, a few good exits, and maybe half of losses. For a corporate, investing in a project should be more strategic than purely financial. In a corporate side, if a project failure is not, it shouldn't be considered as an actual loss, because on the one hand, testing an idea with a lean startup approach and finding out it doesn't work can actually save several $1 million or euros in market research and in product development, but it's hard to measure. And on the other hand, the teams in the project that failed, they will have learned a lot. So it can be actually viewed as a career accelerator. And when they come back to the company, they will come with new methodologies and new ways of working, and probably they can increase productivity, inspire their coworkers, and then drive change and create great value for the company. But that again is hardly measurable, especially in a big company. So back to the entrepreneur's role in the board. So the sponsor is usually a member of the board. But you usually would have people from strategy and from finance, because people from finance are usually the ones that are giving the money. And the board will have a decisive role on the pursuit of the project. If the project undergoes a stage gate process, the board can decide a no-go of the project at every gate. One of the challenges for the entrepreneur and for the innovation department or entrepreneurship leaders, or whatever you want to call them, is to get the board to understand that existing decision processes, metrics and criteria used for business as usual projects cannot be applied to innovation projects that are using test and learn methodologies. They need to make a shift from taking decisions based on planning and budgeting to make decisions based on customer proof and validation. So in order to avoid discussions on internal return rates and on return on investments, entrepreneurs must define their own metrics of progress. Innovation projects do need clear metrics, but these metrics should be specific to every project and should be adapted to every stage of the project. When the entrepreneurs define their own indicators of success, well, they can actually define indicators of failure as well. That's a good thing. Not only they show they have a clear, adaptable, and measurable roadmap, they also assume full responsibility, and they assume the fact that they are ready to stop the project from their own will if they don't achieve these objectives. Another good hack to accelerate this culture shift within the corporate organization is to have people coming from outside the company who are renowned on the startup and the innovation ecosystem, like venture capitalists or business angels or directors of incubators, because they can actively challenge preconceived opinions from the board members or from the corporate leaders. For example, at the Poste, we have quarterly reviews with all of the projects. And in these reviews, we also include external experts who will challenge entrepreneurs in a different way, and who will also have a positive influence in from the corporate members of the board. And regarding metrics, we also ask our entrepreneurs to define their own key metrics of success for the next performance review or quarterly review. So, which means that if they don't achieve the metrics they build themselves, the project is potentially shut down. You have a lot of pressure, really. So you assume full responsibility. So well, basically, then that's the end of the entrepreneur's journey. It's well, the board is not the end of the entrepreneurship journey, but well, at the final, let's say, board meeting, what happens at La Poste is that we will define if we stop the project, or if they can go to what we call an investment committee with let's say higher level of decision, who will decide if the project can become an actual venture financed by the company. So if you have any questions regarding every step.
10 minutes.
Yes?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious, you told us about what kind of qualities these entrepreneurs should have to become successful, but I'm assuming that being part of this organization for a long time, you need to guide them in how to use these qualities. So how did you guide them, support them in becoming entrepreneurs? Did you Yeah.
That's a good question, and I don't have actually a good answer for that one.
Okay.
This is actually a return on experience of what we have done and what we haven't done. So that's part of the things we haven't done. We have like a real challenge to identify these qualities at, let's say, the beginning, and then how to develop these attributes. Because as I was telling, people do not need to have these attributes. They need to have a potential to acquire them. But in the ideal world, we should work with maybe with HR to define like an evolution of attitudes and skills. But it's still, let's say, work in progress. But it's a very good question.
Can you talk a little bit more about some experiences about how people find the time out of their normal job to find the time to do the entrepreneurship? Actually, do you remove them completely and they just get to focus on it?
Yeah, actually, during the whole selection process, they have to work alongside with their job. So that will be the weekends, the lunch breaks, and well, the evenings. But once they have passed like the final stage of the selection process, they do work full time on the projects.
So they get, but you said they take some shares in the company, which is, I guess, their reward for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do the other people in the department cope with having somebody removed? Is that a challenge?
It's a big challenge, especially because, as I was saying, they stay in the headcounts of the previous department. So no, they don't like it.
So they still have to get paid by the marketing department, but they're not.
Yeah, for example, and they are not, even if they're working for a project that has nothing to do with it. So what we will try this year is to make the sponsor pay for the headcounts. I mean, we, from the innovation department, will put money on the table for the project, and the sponsor will put virtual money on the table by taking the people into the headcounts.
And the department can replace the person.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool, great, thank you.
Do they sit together? Do they work together, or are they?
No, because some of them are not in Paris, so we don't force everybody to move to Paris. It will be very expensive for us as well. Outside of Paris, we partner with incubators or co-working spaces, because the idea is for them not to work inside the organization. However, sometimes it depends also on practical aspects. For example, she managed to get a free office in her previous department, but which is not close to where she was working. So it's part of being an entrepreneur. If they come and tell us, I have a free office, we'll say, okay. They're actually quite flexible on that.
The people are like our executive levels, or also like managers, senior managers participating in teams. Who are they?
All of them. We even have had postmen, post ladies, people who deliver the mail. We had different levels of management, from let's say junior positions to top management position. But most of them, let's say, it's like junior middle.
I have a question. When you say that to get sponsors also, it's important to bring business unit leaders, or make sure that you align the project of your project with the strategy or the vision of the company. But what if the vision, if it's too long term, is not the right one for the company, and then maybe you need to go like completely outside? Like, how do you manage that? Because it limits the creativity as well.
It's actually you need to choose. I mean, we have decided that we will focus on, let's say, short, mid-term projects. I don't say I fully agree with that, but for me there are two things. That if you have like adjacent innovation, so projects that are kind of related to the business unit, it's better to have that. But it's true that if you have like more long-term projects and that projects that are more uncertain, ideally you should be able to have another structure that can like incubate these projects outside from the company, but we have decided to do the other way. I mean, it's hard to have both of them at the same time.
The idea is to have disruptive innovation.
Exactly.
We have to be pragmatic and to try before to have the short term and mid term to get confidence from the company and so on. So the more you get, and after the more they will give you.
Yeah, maybe when we will get our, let's say, first success stories, maybe we will be able to go to the next level. So we're counting on you guys.
Does the entrepreneur want to come back to the organization after the and how do you manage to convince, like you empower them and you develop their skills, but how do you make them agents to the transformation of the company again?
It's actually complicated, but we have stopped 2 projects, and it's not that, well, let's say in terms of HR, they come back to their previous job, but some of them will maybe change job in the 3 or 6 months, and we usually try to help them by connecting with other people in innovation department, strategy department, or marketing department. But the thing is, it's also an HR thing. So we are not yet there with working really together with HR. But it's a challenging thing.
Yes, I have a double question. All you said sounds like an entrepreneur is quite alone in the process. And does the process is linear after the selection, or do you have an iterative process and running some loops? How do you manage it? Does the entrepreneur work in teams, and is it allowed to have some iterative loops?
Yeah, well, each project will need to have its own iterative loops, but the teams, the entrepreneur, when he decides to submit a project, he needs to come with a team. So there are at least 2 or 3. But there is the ecosystem is, let's say, the innovation department and also the sponsor. So I'm not sure I got your question actually.
Okay, that's an answer. So
okay.
Now the entrepreneur, your answer is the entrepreneur comes with a little team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he needs to
come.
go.
The process is completely linear. It looks like, but I think it's not.
No, because the projects can stop.
How long? What is the period between the selection?
Like batches.
Yeah.
Let's say, well, we used to have a year challenge. So we had a call for projects for 2 months, then the whole selection process until the end of the year, and the year after we will have 2 to 4 projects that they will start their entrepreneurship journey. So they will be like this, I don't know how you say it in English, effet promotion.
Yeah, like promotions.
Yeah,
like the year of 2000.
Yeah, exactly. But this year, well, what we found out when we were doing the fact of doing a year challenge, well, it's interesting because in terms of communication is easier, but actually you lose a lot of time as well. Because we start the call for projects from April to June, and then they start working on the projects on January, February of the following year. So if someone has an idea on July, they will have to wait like a year and a half. So we have decided to get out of this challenge model to go more to a permanent platform. So we will still have like small batches, but we will select. We will have like 3 or 4 selection batches every year.
And actually, I have a question, which is more maybe for the entrepreneur here. When you listed the list of all the qualities that the entrepreneur needs to have, for me, it sounded like a superhero.
No, because it doesn't mean that one person has to have all these
qualities. Yeah, that was my question actually, because we see a trend also more to have, like instead of one entrepreneur leading the whole project, like having a team. Like, what's the the percentage, or how is your project? Or your project with that, like, is it more like a group of leaders, or is it like more one person actually, taking the responsibility?
It's quite different from in every project. You have some projects where you have like a natural leader. Sometimes it can happen in projects where you have 3 people, and sometimes in the projects where you have 2 people, it's more balanced, maybe more balanced approach. But they are not supposed to have all that qualities. I mean, it's a potential to develop those qualities. And if they have if there are 2 and one has half of the qualities and the other one the other half, then it's okay. You have a question?
Yes, I have 2 questions. First one is, what happens to the people that were wanted to be part of the program and didn't succeed? They worked, you say it's a side project.
Yeah.
But it's still work.
Yeah, of course.
What do you do? Is the community, is something that you manage to, what do you do?
Yeah, we tried the community, but the thing is that it's very time consuming. If I had a community manager, it would be great. So I would do it. So, but we still have like a list of all the people that try to get into the process. So we do try to give some, for example, information. For example, every year when we launch the challenge, we inform them that the challenge has been launched. And regarding the selection process, for the projects that are not selected, we do give a full feedback on why it was not chosen, maybe also help them think about what they want to do in the company, maybe make them get in touch with internal mobility in HR. And some of them, they actually, especially the ones that got until the final level, we've seen some people that they following the 3 or 6 months after the program, they have also evolved to new projects. For example, there is this lady who was working in procurement, so she was kind of bored. She didn't want to do procurement anymore. She didn't win, but like 3 or 6 months later, she found another job with a small business unit looking for a customer service director, and she could she used the experience that she took in the process to get this position. But it's hard to really track everybody.
So before you choose the good project, you put in place the structure of the board, sponsor, ecosystem, and managers.
It's not actually a process because not necessarily, because for example the board can be different for each project, because you usually have an expert on the field of the project, so which is usually the sponsor. And regarding external people, you can also have external people with different people. So I mean, there is not a good recipe. You can start with the process and not having yet the outcomes. At the beginning, we only started with the challenge. We didn't know actually what we were doing after selecting the projects.
Because, for example, in meantime, if the project there's something goes wrong with the project, so who will be the responsible? If there are no sponsors or managers, and and you already selected a project, so how can you track the success of the project if there are missing elements?
Oh no, they do need a sponsor. That's a fact.
Okay, so
but you actually don't need to have the sponsor structure. I mean, you don't need to actually say, well, this is my list of potential sponsors. You can wait until you select a project and then go and see who will be the best suited sponsor. One last question.
Okay, my question actually is linked to this one. How do you train the board? Because you say that we need to help them assess the process differently, but do you train them?
No, we can't on the external people we bring in order to do, let's say, like acculturation of thinking outside of the corporate process. And what we did one year, but maybe we'll start this year again, is also to give like a training, even if it's a 2 days training to the sponsors. Because the sponsors are not actually always trained on that either. Even if they are sometimes they're very nice and open, they sometimes don't know how to help the projects.
Thank you.